It's those little things that keep me finding my way back to the Orange County line.
Hello and welcome to the Why with Dr. T. So we have a little impromptu podcast going on. We had a big anticipation of a big outdoors event with the 175th anniversary of the Orange County Courthouse, but the power is out. So we are improvising and moved it back inside using natural light. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I want to introduce Mr. O'Connell. I don't even call you Jim. I always call you Mr. O'Connell. And one of the things that I want to do in these podcasts is to really spotlight community folks and all the things that they do that most of the time no one ever knows about. And the years spent working for community to see so that we can have an opportunity to see beyond ourselves. That's why I wanted you here. So why don't you introduce yourself? What you've been doing for all these years?
Okay.
The highlights.
Highlights, yeah. All right, well, I'll say thanks for having me, Dr. T. By the way, we go way back.
How many years?
When I first came here in Orange County, I started out as the director of guidance at Springs Valley High School. So I was just starting out, and I happened to call her because I was doing something on
What year was that? Roughly.
87, maybe?
No, it wouldn't have been that. It would have been later.
80.
It would have had to been in the late 90s, I think.
All right. Well, losing track of time. You know what? That's when you had your child.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It would have been 90. Well, it wouldn't have been late. It'd probably been 94, 95. I bet it was 95, 96 because I had just graduated high school and had some real jobs and going to school, working for parents as teachers, I think.
Ah,
I think that might have been it. I mean, that's been a long time.
well, I remember having you come in because I was kind of new to being the guidance director from coming out of state. And I still remember one of the things that you did that other teachers started doing is you brought your daughter in and then you used shaving cream. You put it on a table in front of her and just allowed her to feel that. And she was sensing things. And so I had some other teachers who I remember in particular that was later on, they were pregnant and they said, I got to do that.
Really?
Yes. So you start.
I forgot about that. That was parents as teachers. That was early childhood development.
So that was my first experience
Yes.
here. Now that was so cool. And then it was amazing. You didn't realize how your
No.
teachers, the lives that you impacted.
No.
And they did that. And they would come back to me and tell me how their child experienced that
Wow.
and saying, allow them to experience and feel things to that way. So, yeah. So that's my earliest memories of, first connecting with you. And then, as you mentioned, I retired from the school system after about 30 years. And then once I retired is my wife was still working, and I remember like trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I'd call my wife from Walmart, and then she would say, I'm working, and I didn't have anybody to talk to. So I was trying to, what am I going to do? And so I kind of redirected it, and I changed it from retirement. I don't use the word retirement anymore. I use the word reinventing or redirect myself.
Yeah.
And so from there, I ended up doing some volunteer work. I volunteered with Hoosier National Forest at a Indiana Pioneer Mothers Memorial, just kind of cleaning the trails. And I also volunteer as the chaplain, could be the chaplain or you paleo health. And so kind of started picking up on activities like that. And then went back and enrolled in a program in which I became a permanent deacon for the Archdiocese of Indianapolis. And so I'm kind of now working with two churches. And one of the things I found, especially as being the guidance counselor, is it's just so important to have resources and to be able to offer them to folks. And you were a wonderful resource, by the way. As a matter of fact, I had you in my drawer on my lap in the office as soon as kind of SOS students. And then I put Brandy Darrell in my head. So I would call you in and say, this was over my head. I need a little help here. So,
That's true. That's true. Now, what I remember, one of the earliest encounters with you that I remember is also through the Ministerial Association, because I was working community mental health. And probably at that time, somewhere around there, I was case manager / therapist in that kind of transition. But we did a lot to link people to services and resources. And the Ministerial Association around here did a lot of work for folks, maybe on their home, maybe linking them to resources, just different things. And that's one of the things that I remember. And then fast forwarding a bit is the bicycle build.
Oh.
Now, tell me the story about the bicycle build.
Oh, yeah, we did that behind Live Springs.
Yeah.
I took the tennis team. Oh, yeah. It was kind of through Mindy Lambden.
Yeah.
And I played tennis all my life and still kind of help out coaching. And so it was a service project. And Mindy got this event going where I believe it was every fifth grader in Orange County was going to have a bike. And so at that point in time, I was a varsity tennis coach, and I would remind my players that you serve not only on the court, but you serve off the court. So talked to many, and they had a semi over there. So what we did is I brought the tennis team over, and we had like an assembly line, and every one of the players had a job to do, like putting on a seat, putting on a tire. And we were actually got to be kind of funny because we were wanting to beat Mike Terry, who happened to be the security officer at IU Health. So we wanted to do better than law enforcement. That's what they did. And so the kids really enjoyed that. I mean, the tennis team really enjoyed it.
How many bikes?
Do you close to every fifth grader? So I'd probably say maybe close to 270.
I thought it was around 300 or close to 300 is what I was thinking. That was an amazing kind of thing that you don't hear happen a lot, and it takes so many people to put that on and to volunteer and then to distribute. And again, Orange County is pretty special.
Yeah. And you know what I found out is people are just willing to step up if they see. I think if they really see authentic needs.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting is I went up to Indianapolis. Now it was held at Lucas Oil Stadium, and they had an event that was called Shine. It meant shine as if for spreading hope in neighborhoods everywhere. And I happened to keep going to this one conference. I can't remember the exact, what time, you had breakout sessions. And this one lady, she drew like a Venn diagram, and it really had an impact on me. And on one circle, she'd say need. On another circle, she would say desire. In another circle, it would be interest. And it said, if those three come together, you should respond to that. So if you see a need, you have the desire, and you have the capacity that you ought to do something with that. And so I kind of measure that. That's kind of my how I use it as my barometer is what programs am I going to get involved in? And where do I find my desire? Where do I find my capacity? And try to help out and get other people to help out in that. And examples like yesterday, Catherine Anderson, it's Suicide Prevention Month.
Yep.
And Catherine Anderson and others, I'm sure, organized that prevention walk.
Yeah.
And tennis team was.
I saw the tennis team showed up. I was going to make sure you got there in this as we're talking that you talked about yesterday, because that was such a beautiful event. I think there was 143 folks there, and that's amazing in a small area like ours. And just the amount of work and effort and compassion that went into that event is amazing. And you, true to your word, serve on the court and off the court. There was the tennis team.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I really wanted to highlight the fact that it's important to live the mission, or, to talk the talk and walk the walk.
Yes. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, kind of like the rubber meets the road, and I just call it boots in the street. And Matt Wolf, who's now a varsity tennis coach, he just did a wonderful job, and always appreciate it. So I kind of rely upon now, as I'm getting older, I kind of rely upon, say, what resources are out there. And so how can I maybe animate something, but then mediate it, get other people to kind of take over with that.
Right. Build leadership.
Yes, empower people to do that. And I find the youth are really stepping up, is what I found. Of course, the other thing is being in the school system. There's some fringe benefit because I could get them out of class, and they.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a mutual benefit. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There's always some motivation. I mean, there's a perk, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
They would always volunteer. I'll do it. What bass can you get me out of? And they have preference on certain classes, like your fifth period, fourth, never, no. But yes. And, I remember getting married. One of the things that I think my sisters had 3 sisters, so they always kind of kept me in line. And I remember them kind of advising me on marriage and saying, you're good as you are, but you'll be much better with her.
And I think they were right.
Oh yeah. There's no doubt about it. Not so good to see. He was like, "Why are you dragging your feet? Get on with this." And so you've got 3 sisters coming up and saying, "You better take advantage of this." So I kind of apply that. Geez, almost anything is like, we're good as we are as individuals, but collectively we're so much better. And it's just like going to a hospital. Like, man, you got a team of doctors working with you, and there's not just one doctor, and they're different specialties, and they're dialoguing and collaborating. Is wow. There's a resource there.
Yeah. And I think we're really fortunate here in Orange County to have a lot of that same kind of mentality. Is let's work together. Let's figure out what we have more in common than what sets us apart, and then let's work on that piece. And I think we see it every day with the volunteerism that happens here, and the motivation to keep working at making a community better and healthier. And I see that, and that's one of the things I think it's important to highlight, because it's easy to kind of get drugged down into the dirt. It's easy to be able to split and to see only the negative in somebody. And I think that it is more important to see what brings us together and to tell stories about people who do that. Doesn't mean that they're perfect. Doesn't mean we're perfect at all. And Lord knows we're all a work in progress, but to be able to highlight stories of when we see something beyond ourselves.
And that's nice to see, because today you don't see much of that narrative. And Ken Renown wrote a really good book that really inspired me, and it's called Wounded Healers. And it's like, we're all wounded. Is how do we help one another, in their woundedness, and how do we help them become better as who they are? And it's not so much like uniformity, but as unity among diversity is what I see. And to have that diversity I think is just so nice and growthful. And it's like in that tension is where I find growth, and where we can say, okay, all right, what do you think? What do I think? I may not agree totally, but I want to hear you out.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we may come up with something that's totally different than both we've original viewpoints.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's really important to be able to dialogue like that, because I think so much of the world now is just so much of a monologue.
Yeah. I agree.
And I'm just going to try to force to get my opinion across, and I'm not really dialoguing with you and hearing you out.
Yeah. I think that that is definitely an issue. But I think stories like these and just it helps to move us out of that space even just a little bit and more into that dialogue space.
Yeah, and I think also it builds hope.
Yeah.
Where you say, okay, where do we find the light in all this? Where do we find the hope? And it's nice sharing, positive stories, and it's nice seeing that people are working together, and in a team approach. And as you mentioned, like with the Ministerial Association, that I think, and I'm not exactly certain, but there's probably about 30 some or maybe even more different churches in Orange County.
Mhm.
And we all see things differently. But when we come together, it's like, it's not so much to look at our differences, but what do we have in common?
Yeah.
And our common is, how are we going to help people? And how are we going to help them become the best that they are?
Yeah.
And there's just so many different styles. And I think one of the things I learned from just watching from the sports world, my brother was a head professional up at IU. He worked up at IU. And to see players from England, Germany, Ireland, Russia, and Australia. And one of the things I saw is like, oh my goodness, there's so many different styles and techniques and backslings and all that stuff, tennis terminology, but that contact point has got to be the same. And then that's one of the things I look at and saying, okay, so my approach from that is kind of transferring that from the sports world into life. I think I could say with a ministerial association, say, well, all got the same contact point. So there's different ways about doing it. And it's funny because my wife will come one way to the square, I take another way. Well, I get here. So,
And so does she.
yeah.
But now I am sure her way is better.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I have to agree to that, but well, yeah. But we still get there. And
Still
it's
gets that.
having that contact point and being able to kind of work together and kind of seeing the mission. And I just really applaud you and what you're trying to start and trying to build hope and trying to have a narrative and trying to pass that on. So future generations can have that.
So that reminds me of a story or of Chris and I talking just yesterday. And when you had mentioned, and then this lives on, you getting these types of stories down there, they're in the universe. And he and I were just talking about that in respect to future generations of our family that we will maybe never meet. So our great grandkids probably are, and then after that, and I think it'll be neat that these stories live and they will be able to see those and they'll be able to know they have a connection with us that and that then they never met us, but that their history
Yes.
has been recorded, at least a little bit of their family history has been recorded, and to me, I think it's kind of the saying of, we plant trees, but we'll never sit in their shade, and I know I'm chopping that up, but that's kind of the thing is it's important to kind of leave a legacy if possible, and I think that this storytelling venture is also a legacy for the next generations and to see what foundations they were built on.
Yeah, and you're starting that, congrats, because you're starting that foundation, and and the stories are a way in which I find that we keep that spirit kind of alive, and we keep that hope alive too.
Yes, and so I think too that having this podcast and having it be specifically Orange County, at least for now, I think it's important that it be seen as even a documentation, a process um, of that storytelling that can live on and on and on. That's definitely one of the goals with it.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and I wish you the best.
Well, I appreciate you being here. You've been one of the longest running, folks in this community work that we've done a lot together, and a lot of it is usually it's service to others, and the others are very high risk. A lot of the things is coordinating builds and for community mental health related individuals with chronic mental illness and making sure they have a ramp or making sure that there's windows are weatherized or any type of thing. So I think it's important to get you on here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. Well, like I said, best of luck.
Thank you.
All right. That's good.
Yeah, there we go.
If the